Hello, everybody out there. Happy Friday to begin with, first of all. And thanks for tuning in if you're joining us now. So I'm Surabhi Upadhyay, and what are we doing here today? We are talking personal finance, and we're going to be discussing something that was really, really important. It was announced by the market regulator earlier this week, and it deals with advisory services. So if you take advice from anybody on your mutual fund holdings, you need to watch this. Yeah.
Hi.
Hey, Mohit, how's it going?
All good, Surbi. How are you?
All good, all good. So, happy Friday, first of all. I'm at my choppiest best. I love this day, as I'm sure many of us do.
Thank
So
God
yeah,
it's
I was
Friday.
telling our viewers who've joined in right now that this is very important for anybody to understand. If you invest in mutual funds and you probably take advice from people. Now, Mohit, here's the thing, right? Let's break it down to the fundamental level. What the regulator is talking about. There is advisory where you're going to be paying someone to tell you what's the right investment, which fund to be in, which fund to churn out. That's advisory. And then there is distribution, where the distributor gets paid by the asset management company. Yet, Mohit, distributor also sells, the distributor also sort of quasi advises. So we've been in this sort of confused no man's land for many, many years now, haven't we?
Yes, absolutely. So the lines between distribution and advisory on the field, Surbi, right? And without any mincing any words, I would say that the lines are very blurred, right? Very often you see on the ground that distribution goes beyond the call of what they are supposed to be doing by the letter of the law, and kind of recommends allocations to the clients or tells them what to buy, what not to buy, and when to sell.
Yeah.
By the strict word of the law, by the strict spirit of the law, distributors are supposed to only provide a list of choice to the client which is appropriate or suitable, and the clients have to execute through the distributors on their own will, basically. And distributor receives a portion of commission from the manufacturer of the product, which could be the fund house, which could be the PMS provider, which could be the deposit provider, or any other entity. So they will make inbuilt commissions, which the manufacturer will pay, and the clients won't pay anything. So that's the distribution part, and that is what the law says, the legality says. Now, on the advisory side, it's exactly the opposite. The advisor owns the fiduciary responsibility of what the client is doing. What is he supposed to do? The advisor is supposed to risk profile a client. It's supposed to recommend an allocation. It's supposed to give some buy sell calls depending on what he thinks is appropriate, and everything has to be properly documented, recorded. And the most important part is that the advisor is not supposed to make any money whatsoever in any form from the manufacturer of the product, which means the fund houses, the AMCs, the PMS providers. He can't make any money. He has to charge his clients for his advisory fee. So
Yeah.
that's the demarcation.
That's a definition. While I agree with you that it's been blurred and all over the place, I think part of the blame lies with us, you and me, the investors. I mean, how many of us actually ask the simple fundamental question? The guy sitting on the other side of the table has to make his money. So either you pay him as the investor, you're taking his advisory services. If you're not paying him, someone's paying him. And obviously, if he's a distributor, it's the asset management company that's paying him. So then think about it. Where's the money coming from? Therefore, whose interest might he most probably be working for? Okay, so that's the basic, this segregation between distribution and advisory. Now let's get down to what SEBI has said. And Mohit, I was going through some of the details you had sent me earlier. So very interesting. Now it seems the regulator is saying that any advisor, any sort of investment advisor can't do both. If I'm
Yes.
an investment advisor, I can't be a distributor and be an advisor at the same time.
Okay, yeah. So what was happening, Surbi, till now is that a distributor was being both advisor and an advisor was being distributor as well. So he was providing advice in one entity in one name and providing distribution in another entity or in the same entity with a Chinese wall kind of a mechanism, and uh, 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 making money through the distribution arm and not making money through the advisory arm, or showing some services through the advisory arm, as in showing portfolio allocations through the advisory arm and showing execution through the distribution arm, and yet making money, right? So it was like playing around with the finance of the regulations. Now, what the regulator has said that if you are an individual RIA, you cannot do both. And not just you, the family of individual RIAs cannot do both. Basically, which means that if the husband is an RIA, he cannot provide distribution services in his spouse's name, in his parents' name, or any other family member's name. So the entire family of an individual RIA has to be an RIA, and an individual distributor has to be a distributor. They can't mix the two services. If you're a
Okay.
non-individual, yeah, sorry.
Uh-huh. No, I was just asking. So, does it mean that, if I as an entity and a family choose to go down the RIA path, then I can only be an RIA for all my clients? Or is it client specific that to one client, I can't be both an advisor and a distributor? I mean, can I be offering distribution services to another set of clients who are choosing to, take distribution?
So
Or do
look,
I have to be just an RIA for all my clients then?
as an individual, you will have to choose the path. Sudhi, what do you want to do? Basically, if you're a non-individual, you have the option to run both the arms together, which is distribution and advisory arm, and you can create a SIDT or a Chinese wall kind of a compartment where the two
Okay.
arms don't talk to each other, and the clients are not common. So once the client is categorized as an advisory client in one entity of the advisor, then he cannot be across the group companies. He cannot be deemed as a distribution client, and there can be no money made out of the client across different businesses.
Okay, understood. So, guys, if you're joining us right now, important clarification there. Basically, now either an entity or an individual will offer us pure advisory services for which we will pay from our pocket, or they are going to be a pure distributor. So, we don't pay anything. The asset management company pays, but then you need to do your own due diligence, make sure that you're getting the right funds, etc. Now, let's take a step further, Mohit, about the timelines. So I was reading the SEBI paper, and it seems that for new clients now we have to choose explicitly what sort of service do we want. What happens to existing clients? I mean, I know that I've got some mutual funds through a distributor who was claiming to be an advisor earlier. So what happens to all of those old holdings?
So look, if the old holdings will remain as it is, the distributor can't ask you to convert to an advisory model or vice versa. If he was an advisor before and wants to go to distribution, he cannot ask you or force you to convert to a distribution model right now. So the old holdings will continue, but all the new allocations which you make will have to be clearly categorized depending on the nature of the activities of the individual or the corporate entity. So you will have to, going forward, you will have to choose one path. And individual RIAs who hold more than 150 clients, they have to necessarily convert to corporate RIAs. They cannot onboard more clients beyond 150 effective 30th of September itself. So going forward, they will have to give an option to the clients, and they will have to necessarily convert to a corporate entity before going beyond 150 clients.
Okay, okay. So that's important. Does it change anything for the investor if the RIA moves from being an individual RIA to a corporate entity?
Oh yeah, a lot of things change for the investors actually. Now look, I think investors will have to be very, very careful. In the global arena, advisory services are very, very commonplace, right? Advanced countries in the world like US and Singapore are almost all on advisory model where the advisor charges client a fee and owns fiduciary responsibility. It kind of makes the advice unbiased. If you're moving with an advisor, you have to understand that he's not making any money out of your money. All he's charging you is on the paper, is legal, is out there written in the contract. So it's always better that you choose, as an investor, you choose an advisor because his interests are aligned with you and not with the manufacturer. So there's no push of the products involved out there, right? So that's one part. I think the regulations are in the right direction, but they are very onerous. For a corporate RIAs, now basically what will mean and what is happening Surbi off late is if you see the banking parts of this business where people invest through banks, most of them have both the entities. So they follow kind of a hybrid model. The private banks of the country, they will give distribution services to their clients and say 80% of the portfolio is under distribution services and 20% is in advisory or vice versa, and they will make money out of some portion and not charge a fee on the entire portion. So it was the hybrid model was running.
So let me, come to a fundamental question on exactly this, Mohit. First of all, please make sure don't take advice without asking whether the person is working for you or whether the person is really working as a distributor for an asset management company. See, we need to go in with our eyes wide open. If you're choosing not to pay money for advice, it's a different matter. But then take whatever's coming to you with a pinch of salt. Do your own homework, do your due diligence, check the funds, look at performance, look at the portfolio. Then you need to do some hard work. There's no point really buying something at someone else's recommendation, where that recommendation came because of a certain, perhaps a certain compulsion or a bias or a commission involved, and then saying that fund acha kaam nahi kar raha hai. So that's something to keep in mind. Mohit has told us that now going forward, you will have the option of choosing whether you want advisory services or distribution services. It will be very, very explicit. Now, Mohit, this you were talking about the banks, and let me ask you this, because this is where it gets very confusing. We walk in and you'll have your RM calling. The RM is going to patch you on to one of the persons in the product team, and before you know it, you're lost in that sea, and you don't know if this is, a sales push that's coming your way. You don't know if it's genuine advice, and then they'll make you feel about like how your entire sort of situation has not been handled well, and your money's lying idle. So, how to deal with the banks? Tell us that first. How is the model going to play out there?
So it's a tricky scenario, and I understand what you're saying, being a banker myself for like good 11 years of my career. So I hope the voice is a little clear now. And so look, what happens is most of the private and the retail banks follow a distribution model. Okay, so let's be very clear on that. The clear filter for an investor to understand is if a entity is offering you regular plans of mutual funds, and I'm just restricting it to mutual funds right now for clarity of thought. If the entity is offering you regular plans of mutual funds, it is a distribution model. It cannot be an advisory model because regular plans entail commission, and the distributor is making some money out of the AMCs or the manufacturer. If an entity is providing you direct plans of mutual funds, by default the entity has to have an advisory license basically, and we've been doing this for many years now.
From the client in most cases. That's why they're offering you direct
Absolutely.
plans, right? Yeah.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. So if you're going to a bank, entering a bank, be very careful. Banks most likely will be distribution arms only because they have to kind of take care of their operational costs, overheads, everything, right? So,
Yeah.
there's a lot of cost involved, so they have to make some money. And let's be fair, I think everyone has to. There are no free lunches in this world. So even the advisor will charge you a fee, but that you can negotiate. SEBI has also laid out restrictions on the cap of what an advisor can charge and what an advisor cannot charge, right? So, but the clear filter I've told you for investors, I think that's the takeaway. You have to know by this one litmus test that whether the entity through whom which you're dealing is an advisor or a distributor.
Okay, got that. Now let's come to the next very important point, and I think this is quite path-breaking. SEBI has clearly laid down how much fees an advisor can charge, and this is very, very, very important. Of course, the advisor community, I guess, Mohit can counter-argue saying, if my services are better, let me charge more, let it be a free market, etc. But here's what the regulator is saying. Regulator is saying either or. You choose one of the options. Either you charge 2.5% of the assets under advisory, and we'll come to that. What is assets under advisory? Or you charge a flat fee, maximum 1.25 lakh rupees, 1,25,000 rupees for a year. Did I get this right, Mohit? Is this what the new rule says?
Absolutely, absolutely. Free markets have gone out of the window, Survi. Let me tell you that. That's only in theorem. Yeah, 2 point.
Obviously, it's a different situation now to deal with.
Absolutely, absolutely. So 2.5% of AUA, which is assets under advisory, which will include everything which is demat balances or mutual fund holdings or anything which the advisor has provided advice on. That's the max you can charge to the client's family, not just client. So if it is a client, let's say it's me, my spouse, my parents, all included, they're dependent on my income, and I take a cumulative family call. So 2.5% is the annual cap which I can charge as an advisor as a percentage of AUM. 2.5% is a reasonably decent number, honestly. Or if you're charging a fixed fee model, and let me tell you, most of the advisors are on a fixed fee model. So if you're charging a fixed fee, then you can't charge beyond 1.25 lakhs a year, again, to the entire family of clients. So that's and you have to choose either of the model. You can't have both the models going together.
Okay,
that on some portion you charge a percentage and some portion you charge a fixed.
Okay, so you can't do a mix and match. It has to be very clearly spelled out. What is the common sort of prevalence, Mohit? If we're talking about the 2.5% or even the fixed, typically the fees is paid out quarterly. Is it paid out at the beginning of the year, end of the year? What is the industry norm right now?
So it can depend on the Yeah, so it can depend on the agreement between the client and the advisor. Ideally, it's a quarterly fee charged in advance. That's the way it works. And 2 quarters, SEBI says that you can charge 2 quarters in advance. That's allowed, and that's the prevalent model. And it's charged on
Okay.
outstanding AUM if you're charging a percentage fee on the AUM.
Okay. Well, then there are a couple of other things. Like I think there are more disclosures that SEBI is now mandating on the website, on the mobile app. Very important. You need to always know whether the investment advisor is actually properly registered or not, right, Mohit? So how do we ensure that we're dealing with an authorized proper person? What are the checks and balances to keep in mind?
Oh, from 1st January, everyone will have to compulsorily put it on their website, on their mobile app. There are six things to be put in, which is the name of the entity, the RIA number. It's called RIA, Registered Investment Advisor number. That'll be there. So typically, distributors will put ARN number, MFI registration number, and the advisors will put RIA number, which is the Registered Investment Advisor number. You can make it out, and everyone will clearly spell it out on the website in the bottom footnote. But now it will have to be prominently put. You'll have to put your registered address, you'll have to put your entities, whether it's a non-individual, individual, and you will have to put the registered SEBI office's address where you are mapped to your local zone. So all those things will have to be
Oh,
displayed. 1st January is the cutoff time for it, so they'll be available on all websites actually.
I think it's better late than never. I mean, please, if you are going to pay someone to get advice on your money, make sure at least that they're registered with the proper capital market regulator. Look out for the RIA number, as Mohit mentioned, and of course for the details of the local SEBI office as well.
I think Sushi, the
Uh,
one important takeaway.
sorry.
Sorry,
Yeah.
yeah, just one important point to highlight. This has been done mostly to counter the tip-based advisors. So if you see that a lot of those Indore-based phone calls clients get that please invest in this stock will give you a tip and will give you. So I think just to regulate that section of the advisory community, SEBI has actually laid out most of these terms so that that portion, which is more tip oriented and stock oriented, gets proper checks and balances. So I think that it's in good direction, honestly.
Understood. Speaking of which, I mean, now what all services can an RIA offer in terms of products? Surely the RIA will recommend mutual funds, ETFs, I'm guessing. Direct equity advice can also be given, and what all can an RIA offer?
Absolutely anything under the sun. So RIAs are
Okay.
free to offer advice on any product. They are regulatorily permitted. They have to fulfill some certifications, and there are some requirements, specific requirements laid out for that also. But they can give advice on all investment assets, be it commodities, be it direct stocks, be it mutual funds, bonds, deposits, everything. All they cannot do is make money out of these products, and the execution services cannot be forced on the client. So the implementation of the advice is a choice left
Yeah.
to the client. He can choose to implement or execute through my platform after taking my
Yeah.
advice, or he can go to any other platform and do it, or he can just do it by himself. He's paying me for the advice, not for execution.
Which brings me to another important point. If you are with an advisor, the new rule now says, I mean, an RIA, an independent advisor, the new rule says that an independent advisor has to offer only direct plans, right, Mohit?
Yeah, yeah,
So there
yeah,
is
yeah,
no
yeah,
extra
absolutely.
charge, there is no commission. What are direct plans? Basically, the cheapest form of mutual funds. The same scheme is offered in two formats, regular and direct. Regular is typically cheaper, but Mohit explained why I thought this was absolutely, made
No,
it
no, I think
so
high
transparent.
time, yes, it's high time investors catch hold of this very, very critical concept. If you're investing for long term, honestly, compounding is what you're looking for. And regular
Yeah.
plans will entail commission. Just to give you a clear example, let's say a large cap fund today, take any example, let's say ICICI Focus Blue Chip. The expense ratio in regular plan of that same scheme will be around 1.75% to 2% annually. If you take the
Yeah.
direct plan of that scheme, the expense ratio in the same scheme will fall down to around I think 0.8 to 1.1% in that range, and
Okay.
that's across the schemes. There's a 0.75 to 1% differential on the annual expense ratio, and this is charged annually. This goes out of the returns of the scheme and is paid out as commission to the distributor, right? So your annual
Yeah.
1%, look, Surabhi, the markets have markets on a long-term basis will probably end up giving you 10%, given the way the economy is, the scenarios are, and the way you're maturing as a market, right? Out of 10%, if 1% goes every year out to your distributor, you're losing 10% of your
It's
returns,
painful.
basically,
It's
right?
painful.
So yeah, so
Absolutely.
that's where this direct plans come into play. And probably your advisor will either charge you a flat fee if the portfolio is very, very large, or he'll charge you a small percentage fee, which can be like 0.25% of assets or 0.3% of assets, depending on the quality of advice involved and the work and effort involved. So you save a lot of money, right? And expenses
Yeah.
also compound like returns does. So investors
Yeah.
have to be very, very cognizant what they are paying for.
Got that. Important takeaways. So to sum it all up, remind us of the timelines again. Mohit, when all does it come into effect? From the investor standpoint, the client standpoint, what do we have to do or be cognizant of? So just sum it up for us.
Okay, so I think that's where SEBI has given some relief, to be very honest, and I think we as RIAs also took a sigh of relief that okay, there is some timeline for us to go to implement things. The
Hmm.
segregation of distribution and advisory arms have to be done by 31st March 2021, which means by then you have to clearly demarcate as a non-individual entity कि कौन से clients are distribution clients and which ones are advisory clients, right? So after that, no intermingling of clients is allowed.
Yeah.
And from a client's perspective, I think nothing changes much because there are many advisors available in the market today. Most of the direct plans platform online are all on the advisory model. There are individual advisors who are CPAs or certified financial planners, basically CFPs, who do a lot of this planning activity for you. So those are still there out there. They can't hold more than 150 clients. If they have to do that, then the deadline for them is 30th September. They cannot have a single extra client. They have to apply to SEBI in 15 days before 15th of October and say that, okay, I want to convert to non-individual RIA
Not.
to get more clients.
Yeah.
So that's
Okay.
the timeline for them, and the website disclosures and everything. The timeline for that is 1st January. So by 1st January, every RIA will have to disclose number of things on the website or their mobile applications and so on and so forth. So those are all there. But the most important part,
Got that.
segregation will happen by 1st April.
Yeah, and I think as investors, the first thing we can start doing is basically look within, ask ourselves, who's paying the money? If we're not paying money for advice, can that advice be absolutely fair? Can it be in our
Yeah.
best interest? Well, chances are no. The guy on the other side has to make money. He has to make a living as well, right? If you don't pay him, he has to get his cut or his commission from the asset management company. As simple as that. It's not rocket
So look,
science,
it's
really.
very similar to how do you go to a doctor or a lawyer or someone? They're all professionals. So an investment advisor is also a professional. They will charge a professional fee to you, right? A doctor to doctor fee can vary. Now you can counter and say that doctors also receive some benefits from the pharma companies. But I think the regulator out there is also very strict and don't kind of they go very strict on doctors if they typically try and promote medicine from a particular pharma company, right?
Yeah.
Similar is the case with an investment advisor. He cannot be promoting drugs or medicines, or as you call it, investment solutions from a particular AMC or fund house, right? So he has to be unbiased, and to keep that spirit alive, I think the regulator has moved the right direction and said that don't make money from advisors, make money from manufacturers, make it from the clients.
Makes sense, makes absolute sense. I think it's for us to grow up, become a little more mature as investors, and either do our own homework, spend that time, that effort, and it is painful. It's not as easy as acting on a stock tip and becoming a millionaire overnight. I wish it was. I wouldn't come to office. I just sit at home, right? Simply, punching away on my laptop and my terminal. But it's not that
Yeah.
easy. So either we learn to do all the hard work ourselves, or otherwise, make sure that we pay the professional fee for those who are doing that research for us and helping us get ideas that can make our portfolios look much, much better. Okay,
Absolutely.
all right, Mohit. Pleasure speaking to you as always. Thank
Thank you
you
so
for
much.
demystifying and simplifying the new SEBI regulations on investment advisors.
My pleasure always,
Okay,
Sophie. Enjoy your Friday. Thanks.
all right. Have a great Friday, folks. Thanks for tuning in.